I've got the new M4 iPad Pro. Regular viewers of this channel may remember that I bought the M2 iPad Pro, sat here and said, actually, I can't think what to do with this thing, so I'm sending it back. And then a few months later, bought one again and actually started using it. It's here. This is the M2 iPad Pro that I bought again, and I've used it for a few things. I've used it for music production with Logic Pro. I've done a lot of writing on it. That's it, really. Now we have the M4 iPad Pro, which is in this box here. I'm keeping it. I'm genuinely quite excited about this. In fact, I'm very excited about it for two reasons. One is because there's quite a few things that are different. It's got a new display. It's the thinnest iPad Apple has ever launched. It's got two new very interesting accessories, and that M4 chip, although it is biblically powerful to a point where we're still thinking, what can we do with it? It tees up a very, very interesting WWDC next month. This is going to be an unboxing and of first reactions to these three things in front of me. So we have the M4 iPad Pro. This is the 13-inch version. It's the base model with the 256 gig of storage. I also have the Apple Pencil Pro and the Magic Keyboard, the new Magic Keyboard. Let's start with the iPad. First impressions is that the packaging feels a lot slimmer than the previous generation. We can check because I have the M2 iPad Pro box here, and yeah, wow, there's a pretty big difference there. Right, let's get into it. Let's open the box. There we go. I do love unboxing Apple stuff. It's such a nice experience. Okay, here we go. Let's firstly, ooh, that does feel light. Immediately, that does feel light. Little leaflet to help you get your iPad set up, which I will not read. No Apple stickers. They've stopped the Apple stickers. I understand why. I think it's to do with environmental stuff. Brilliant. I mean, if that's the case, then I can't complain about that, can I? We get a braided USB-C to USB-C cable. Apple's cables these days are a thing of beauty. I love them. They're so rugged and tough. This is the thinnest Apple product ever made, and that means it's thinner basically than the iPod Nano, which is a brilliant reference, completely unexpected. I am someone who once ordered an iPad Pro, the very first version of the iPad Pro, and it turned up bent. I got it out of the box, looked at it and thought, something's not right. So I put it on a flat surface and it rocked. It was bent out of the box. So that is at the back of my mind. Apple has done some stuff to counteract any issues with bending and stuff. I'll come on to that in a second. Let's just get into this thing. So, gently open. There we go, the paper cover. There it is, the M4 iPad Pro. First impressions? Unbelievably thin. I will get some better shots of this for the full review, obviously, but it's ridiculously thin. Let's compare it against the previous generation. So this is the M2 iPad Pro. Come on, focus, focus. Yeah, it's surprisingly thin. They said this during the keynote, that side by side it's very noticeable with the previous version. So there's not much you can do with an iPad in terms of design. It's still a bit like the iPhone. It's a slab of aluminium and glass. And what are they going to do apart from make it thinner or give us new colours and that sort of stuff? Going back to the whole worries about bending and all that sort of stuff, this new design does have some structural rigidity built into it, obviously, and it's got a new brace or something in here, which basically means this shouldn't bend in your bag. Fingerprint wise, it's picking up some fingerprints. I need longer term testing on that, obviously. I know people are bothered about this sort of stuff, so it's worth mentioning. I went for the silver version, and I don't think they'll be that noticeable. A few other things that strike me immediately, in fact one thing that does, is the camera system. So this is the camera system, which isn't that different from the previous generation. The one big difference, I guess, is the fact that on the M2 iPad Pro, we have two cameras. So we have the regular wide and the ultra wide. We only have the regular wide on the M4 version. Honestly, how many people take photos with their iPads? I don't think that's a big deal, personally. Now, obviously, we do have a brand new display here. It's known as the Ultra Retina XDR. And the nice thing is that we get the same display on the 11-inch. So on the 11-inch M2 iPad Pro, it was missing a few features from the big one, from the 12.9-inch version. This isn't the case. anymore. We get the same display technology on the 11-inch and the 13-inch. But the biggest change really is the fact that this is an OLED panel. In fact, I'll get this set up and then we'll do a quick side-by-side with the previous generation. Okay, so I've got it set up and let's check out this new OLED panel. So on the right-hand side, I have the M4 iPad Pro, and on the left-hand side, the M2 iPad Pro. So hopefully you can see this. That is the M2 version. And this is the M4 version. For me, the difference is it's definitely there. The blacks on the M4 iPad Pro are significantly richer. The overall, brightness and sharpness of the image is on a par, really, but it's definitely a richer display, that lovely OLED contrast that you get. So they both have 1600 nits of peak brightness for HDR content and 1000 nits of standard brightness. That is bright enough for anyone. We don't need to worry about that at all. For some reason, this M4 version looks brighter, but we do know that Apple has had to do some very clever things with this panel to make it as bright as the previous generation. So they've used two OLED displays that have been fused together to create this, what they call a tandem OLED panel, which is, well, it sounds very clever, and clearly it's done the job because it looks lovely. One other thing to mention in terms of the design is the fact they've moved the FaceTime camera from here to here, which is where it should be. That's such good news. What else can I say about the M4 iPad Pro from a first impressions perspective? Not much, but that's not a bad thing, because if you bear in mind the M2 iPad Pro, I couldn't even be bothered to get it out of the box. I didn't know what to talk about with that. We've come a very long way since then, because this is genuinely interesting. I'm impressed. This is a good start to my time with the M4 iPad Pro. However, I have some more stuff to unbox. Apple Pencil Pro. Now, this is the Apple Pencil 2nd generation, and I'm fairly sure it's not going to work with the M4 iPad Pro. In fact, I know it doesn't, but let's just try it anyway. In fact, it doesn't even... It doesn't even sit on there properly. The reason for that, as I mentioned earlier, is that they've moved the FaceTime camera to this part of the iPad, and because of that, they've had to redesign the charging mechanism for the Apple Pencil. So I'm afraid if you buy the M4 iPad Pro and you've got a 2nd generation Apple Pencil, it ain't gonna work. So you do need to buy yourself one of these. And here it is. Here's the Apple Pencil Pro. I like the name, by the way. I'm a big fan of the name. In terms of a comparison against the existing Apple Pencil, pretty much identical in size. So we get two new features with the Apple Pencil Pro. We can squeeze it to bring up menus and turn it around in our fingers. And it has haptic feedback now as well. I assume you can squeeze it from anywhere. Let's try. Ooh, when you squeeze it, it feels like there's a button or something on the... Yeah, it feels like a button on the Apple Pencil that you kind of actually pressing. That's really impressive. This is good news. It's now compatible with the Find My network. So if you lose your Apple Pencil, and let's be honest, we've all done it. If you've owned an Apple Pencil, I can guarantee you've lost it somewhere at some point. You can now find it, hopefully, on Find My. So that's good. So we will add it to my Find My network. Now remember, I'm not an artist, so please do not expect anything spectacular to happen during this demo, but I can show you the new features. So this is the Apple Pencil in normal mode, just writing with it, and again, very responsive as always. If you've never used an Apple Pencil before, trust me, they are just brilliant. However, we do have these new features. So the first thing to mention, this isn't new, but if you haven't used the 2nd generation Apple Pencil on the M2 iPad Pro before, you may not be aware of hover mode, which is where if you just hover literally the Apple Pencil just above the display, you can see a little outline of the Apple Pencil and a little dot to indicate where it's going to land. Now we can squeeze the pencil, as we just did, and depending on where you've got that little hover mode thing, the menu pops up there. Now this is Apple Notes, but developers do have access to that squeezy function so they can do their own stuff with it. So we have a gyroscope in this Apple Pencil Pro, which means it's aware of me twisting it around in my fingers like that. So as I turn the pencil around, the marker on the display, that turns around at the same time, and that's very quick. It's very, very responsive, and if I start drawing and turn and twist, you can see that the marker direction, or whatever you want to call it, it changes. It's not something that you're going to use while you're just writing down notes, but I think Apple has done enough here. I think they've added these two features, that squeezy thing. I will stop going on about this haptic feedback, but it's very impressive. That plus the gyroscope, I think that justifies the fact that you can't use your second generation Apple Pencil on this M4 iPad Pro. Now it's time for the keyboard. As mentioned earlier, I went for the silver version, which I do need convincing about. I'm doing this for you because I know that there'll be a few of you out there who are thinking, do I go for the black one? Do I go for the silver version? Consider me the canary in the coal mine. Is that the right phrase? Here we go. It's white. Is it actually white? Oh, okay, yeah. It is actually white. So inside, it is silver. See, it's the new aluminium surface for the Magic Keyboard. Let's get the iPad connected. And the great thing about the Magic Keyboard, if you weren't aware, is that it just starts working. There's no pairing, there's no charging to worry about. It looks fantastic. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I had this thing in my head about it looking kind of 90s laptop vibes, that sort of stuff. It doesn't. It looks really smart. And the fact I've gone for the silver iPad Pro and the silver/white Magic Keyboard is a decent combo. I'm happy with that. A couple of things to mention about this is the fact that we have, like I say, this new aluminium surface here. Compared to the previous gen, which I'll bring over here, the new one feels much more premium. The other big difference is the fact that we now have a function row key. So we have escape. We've got an escape key for the iPad Pro finally. In terms of the keyboard, so the typing experience, it's the same, but that's not a problem. That's a good thing. They haven't ruined it. They haven't changed it. The trackpad is immediately bigger. The previous trackpad is a button. This one isn't. If I take the iPad off, it doesn't click. If I put the iPad on, it starts clicking. And that's just a haptic motor. It does things to your brain. It's really weird. The viewing angle is the previous generation Magic Keyboard kind of comes far too much forward, whereas this one stops there. That's better. I'm not sure why does it do that? So this is the previous generation and this is the new one. That's as far back as that goes. You can then obviously tilt it like that, but it's, yeah, okay. I'm not sure what it's more refined. So we've got the complete package when it comes to the iPad Pro. I think this is the best tablet money can buy, and I think this setup with the Magic Keyboard and with that Apple Pencil Pro is pretty much unbeatable. But I can't wait for WWDC. That event cannot come fast enough. My full review of the M4 iPad Pro will hit the channel next week, so if you've got any questions about this setup, put them down below in the comments. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and if you've enjoyed this video, give it a cheeky thumbs up. Catch you next time.